Hey guys, it's your favorite Dinobot here, and welcome back to another Bayverse What If. Obviously, like most of them, they're going to be short, but again, not simple. We're going to put as much detail into these as possible, and well, hope you guys enjoy. Please comment down below, like, and subscribe and share with your friends, and let's talk about it. What if the Autobots left Earth? Our story begins where Cade and Optimus basically have that conversation, where Optimus simply states something very factual. Let's just be real. How many of my kind must be sacrificed for your mistakes? And this is where Cade says, well, that's all about being human. We make mistakes, but we also learn from them. And to which this is where Optimus says something very interesting. What mistake or what lesson can you learn from hunting your allies and trying to kill them because you blame them for your superiors' consequences? And Cade goes into like a shocked state. He can't make an answer, but he tries to tell Optimus that that's not really fair, blaming humans for, making all humans for the decisions of a few. And this is where Optimus states, but you can blame Cybertronians for the decisions of a few. To which Cade once again does not have an answer. And this is where Optimus states he will get the seed and he will leave. Nothing more. And Cade has nothing else to say at this point. This means that when they actually do retrieve the seed, it doesn't take them long for the Autobots to simply leave, dropping Cade, Tessa, and Shane off in, well, I think it was Hong Kong or some type of Chinese or Japanese city. Excuse me if I don't remember all like that. But yes, he does drop them off and does allow them to kind of just go their way while the rest of them simply leave with the seed. This means that when Galvatron's troops basically get there, they're gone. There is no seed. But since there is a city full of innocent people, you know what they do? They rip it apart. Just start reducing everything to rubble, destruction, everything that's in Shanghai or Hong Kong, if you will. The city that they're in is reduced to dust, bone, and ash. There is nothing left. It does take a while. Obviously, some of the people do escape, but it's just a Chicago repeat round 2. And this is where humans start blaming the Autobots for everything. Once again, doing the same thing. But unfortunately, here's the thing. There are no Autobots on Earth. You'll say, oh, well, what about Hot Rod? No, Hot Rod's not there. I'm pretty much retconning him entirely. It was the dumbest addition for multiple reasons. For starters, if Hot Rod was there along with Bumblebee, why did he leave him and not continue on his mission to get the Allspark? Why wasn't he there when the Revenge of the Fallen came or when Dark of the Moon happened? Dude, you abandoned your comrades. That's not a good look. And I feel like a lot of people don't discuss it, but Hot Rod literally abandons his own crusade in sake of going for somewhere else. I mean, he and Bumblebee literally came to Earth together in order to try and find the Allspark, right? But they just wind up getting caught in some of the human mess. But yet Bumblebee continues his mission, looking for the thing that can bring their home back to life. And Hot Rod is just out there and about messing around in human endeavors. Dude, you could have saved so many lives with your time-stopping gun and all that. I mean, yeah, so Hot Rod does not exist in this verse simply because of all those reasons. I hate the fact that he was there and the fact that he was there for like so long. So when the Autobots leave Earth completely, this means that, well, when Lockdown contacts Attinger, Attinger says he doesn't know. And he says, well, then we no longer have our deal. Good luck with the Decepticons on your home planet. And Attinger is pissed. Everything he did, the greater, benefit of his country, has now just crumbled, dusted, and he has no one to blame but himself. And so Galvatron's campaign against Earth continues, with any Decepticons that are in hiding coming out. and joining and pledging allegiance to their master. And this does mean that when Barricade does return, probably along with a few other Decepticons like Onslaught, Mohawk, and but let's just say Nitro Zeus as well, Barricade is instantly Galvatron's second in command, and he does introduce him to one of their new accomplices, or one of their newest allies, that being Stinger, his assassin, and says that they will all be treated equally as they were all made the same. To which all the Decepticons bow and say, "All hail Lord Galvatron." And this is where, well, Megatron does dominate Earth for years, and I mean years to come. Or at least, obviously does, conquer Earth with no one being able to stop him. Meanwhile, the Autobots are in space, trying to just, I want to say trying to get by, but they're trying to figure out a plan. To which Bumblebee simply asks Optimus, "So where to? Do we send out a distress call to any Cybertronians in the area?" To which Optimus says, "Actually, that's not a bad idea. We could maybe find some allies, or it may be some other Cybertronians out there." So this is where, they do put out I guess you could say, a rally call to any Autobots in the vicinity. And this is where they actually pick up a signal from a few Autobots. And so when they go towards, let's say, what's a good name for this planet? Paradon. Yeah, I definitely think that's a good name. It's one of the older Cybertronian planets. This is where they come into contact with a few Autobots they have not seen in a while, and that being Blur, Cliffjumper, and Prowl, along with a new Cybertronian who's pretty much the last of her kind on this planet ever since the creators pretty much just eradicated everyone. That being Lifeline. So these four Autobots are now back with Optimus Prime, and this is where he says for right now they are all that's left. And when Cliffjumper asks, "What happened to everyone? Where's Jazz?" and what happened to him? And this is where Bumblebee pulls him aside and begins to explain all the events that pretty much led up to, well, right now. And Cliffjumper is spark broken, his best friend gone, ripped in half, and just the fact that these humans didn't even bother honoring his death, and that his parts might have been used for the KSI program, absolutely crazy. But there's little, something else to discuss, that being the Dinobots. They're still on the ship, and they're still strung upside down. And this is where Grimlock vocalizes in a beastly manner that he wants to be let free, and he wants to be let free now. So Optimus does grab the Sword of Judgment and does cut, the Dinobots free. And this allows them to kind of just roam about for a bit before simply giving Optimus an acknowledging nod, saying that, "Okay, we respect you and we appreciate the fact that, you allowed us to go free." But now they're all just kind of mesmerized by the Dinobots. Lifeline particularly is fairly infatuated with the fact that there are Cybertronian life forms that exist in such a degree. They're not only huge, they're just frightening. They're massive. And now they have an edge over possibly Lockdown at this point. And this is where we also see that whatchamacallit, even Hound and Crosshairs, or Crosshairs mainly, is the one that point this out. They could take the fight to Lockdown if they want, and maybe even take his ship. To which Optimus says, "That's not a bad idea. Perhaps they could actually do that." And so this is where they decide to lure Lockdown into an area where they have the advantage. Now, understandably, Lifeline does not want any more trauma to basically be upon her planet. She's already lost so much. She doesn't feel like they need to, well, endanger her planet any more than it already is. And this is where Optimus simply gives a nod and tells the Autobots that they're moving. And this is where the Dinobots at first protest, but Optimus says, "Look, if you guys come with us, you will get your revenge on Lockdown." Think about it. Don't you want any kind of payback for being strung up and handled like trophies? To which Optimus is right. And the Dinobots simply get their tails on the ship. And well, while the ship is kind of cramped for the moment, it won't be for long. However, before they really take off, this is where Lockdown ship comes into view. And when they realize that Lockdown has actually been tracking the ship, this is where Optimus gets an idea. And he tells Crosshairs to punch it. And so Crosshair simply leaves with the ship, or at least turns the ship into like a, I guess you could say, hyperspace once again. So, unfortunately, Lockdown loses his quarry once again and has lost his trophies as well. And this is where Lockdown begins to, well, set course for, wherever that ship is going. And this is where they state that they'll be using one of Cybertron's many, or one of the Autobots' many outposts, that being Kular. And this is where they simply look at him like, the prison planet? You want to use that against Lockdown? To which he says, indeed, this will be perfect for us to use. We can use the maze, we can use the chasms, and use different warfare tactics to basically get an upper hand on Lockdown. And to which Bumblebee understands the tactic and understands the thinking, but this is where the other Autobots kind of look like, well, how's that going to work? And this is where Prowl begins to explain to Lifeline about Kular, how they're going to use it, and how everything is going to be set up. And considering the fact that Lockdown just used his hyperdrive, it's going to take him at least maybe a cycle or two, which I think in Cybertronian terms is going to be a day. So basically, they're going to have to... They have plenty of time is what I'm trying to say here when it comes to planning out something for Lockdown. And so when they get to Kular, they see everything. It looks astonishing. It looks barren and abandoned even. And this is where they begin to, make their way around and see if anybody's alive. And to which, this is where Drift says this place gives him the creeps. And this is where Cliffjumper explains that Kular was one of the most dangerous prisons ever, housing some of the most terrifying and yet some of the most dangerous Decepticons that she'll ever, and I mean ever, see. These guys were monsters in the war, and this is where we house them, or at least until we abandon it, kind of just leaving it to the side and everything. And this is where they say, so what happened to the prisoners? And this is where Prowl kind of gets a dark look on his face. And he simply states that, well, when we left, a failsafe simply activated. And let's just say the prisoners all didn't make it out like they should. And this is where they simply all look like, oh. So it just killed them. And he says yes. However, there is probably a prisoner still alive, or maybe a guard still alive. We never know. And so, as everyone makes their way, this is where they actually see a sniper bullet fire at them, and they have no choice but to dodge. And this is where they hear a voice state, identify yourselves. And this is where Optimus walks out holding his hands up, recognizing the voice. And this is where he says, evac, it's me. And he looks absolutely shocked and bewildered by this, even transforming into a Cybertronian helicopter state and making his way towards Optimus. This is where he simply looks at him and is like, it's been so long. I've been on this planet for about... how long has it been? To which Cliffjumper says, obviously too long. You look like you're just starving at this point. To which he says, actually it's not. The ship, or at least the prison, had a stable energon supply, especially after the prisoners died. And so this is where everyone kind of just looks around like, well, okay, this isn't this isn't too bad. And this is where Optimus begins to explain to Evac that they have a lot to prepare for and a lot to, in all honesty, make up for. So Evac actually begins them to show the layout of the prison, how he's used it over the years and how it's kind of benefited him in a way to actually survive. They still have energon cubes and stuff like that, so it's not too far-fetched or too out of the ballpark to where, you know, they would I guess you could say, be in some sort of trouble, if you will. And this is where Optimus says, okay, they can work with this. Now, if you guys are wondering how Evac looks, think of the more world type of action figure, his Voyager class form, if you will. So, if we had to give him a size, he'd be around the same size as Blackout. So, possibly a little bit taller than Optimus, but he has obviously a friendlier face to boot his appearance. So, yeah, it's not bad for him, and it's actually pretty good. So with that being said, we actually have the fact that Optimus is, well, now planning and now incorporating his strategy to help with the prison, and even having the Dinobots keep guard for a little bit and using them as lookouts for the moment. Meanwhile, Lockdown eventually gets a call from Quintessa, and this is where she simply asks him, where is it? Well, what do you mean? And he simply asks again. She simply asks again, excuse me. Where is Optimus Prime? And to which he goes like, oh, yes, there was a slight complication, unfortunately, and there's just some complications at the moment, okay? It's just some things were happening, and this is where he stops him and simply states, if you do not bring me Optimus Prime, I will have your spark. And this is where he simply states something that does interest her, though, and that is Earth no longer has the Autobots on it. And she says, really? They don't have any Autobots? No, they will no longer have them. The last few of them were hunted down by Cemetery Wind, and it's very likely you may find someone there that is worth your interest. So, Quintessa cuts the communication, but before she does, she says if Lockdown does not give her Optimus, this is where she simply states that she will make him suffer a fate worse than termination, and cuts the feed. So Lockdown now has to go and find Optimus. And now that his hyperdrive is back up, he beelines it to that location, hoping to get Optimus Prime. However, this is where we pan over to Earth. Galvatron is sitting on his throne, absolutely enamored with himself. He finally did it. Conquered Earth, as he always set out to do. And well, he's actually a little bit bored, actually. You know, in all honesty, excuse me. He's actually bored. He did it. He finally conquered Earth. He's got everything he wanted now. But it just feels, I wouldn't say mundane to him at this point, but it definitely feels like, what else is there for him? He's got everything he wants. However, this is where a voice simply tells him, how about restoring your homeworld? And this is where Quintessa floats down in front of him. And he says, my creator. To which he says, yes, Megatron, it is me. And I have come to recruit you. And ultimately, get rid of this planet. To which Megatron first gets a little defensive. Like, wait a minute, why would you want to get rid of Earth? It's everything I've wanted. It's everything I've needed. Why would you want to get rid of it? And this is where she begins to explain, has he ever felt, excuse me, anything strange about the world that he's on, that it's always felt connected to them? And to which this is where he's like, well, yes, he's always felt like it's been connected to the Autobots and, well, us for a while now. And to which he says, great, I'm glad you see it. And this is where she simply explains, well, that's because the Earth is Unicron. And Megatron simply freezes, like, wait, what? What do you mean the Earth is Unicron? And to which Quintessa simply shows him a vision, showing him that, yeah, she's right. The Earth is Unicron. And unfortunately, he will be hatching soon, or he will be, awakening soon. And this is where Megatron asks, so what do we do? And this is where she simply points to the sky and reveals Cybertron. And Megatron, almost understanding, simply states, by your will, let it be done. And so, this is where we see Earth being absorbed into Cybertron. This not only heals the planet, but it gets rid of Unicron, effectively killing two birds with one stone. However, what about Megatron and the Decepticons? Oh, well, they're fine. They were allowed to join Quintessa and her army, even meeting Infernicus, who would be under Megatron's command. And you might say, wait, Megatron? Yes. Quintessa does give Megatron his new body, converting him to her liking, the way he should be, if you will. And this is where Megatron wants to know, where is Optimus exactly? And she simply states she doesn't know. But Lockdown seems to have his coordinates. And hopefully, she kind of rolls her eyes with it, he does not fail her. But if he does, she will make sure he is a part of his army. And so, this is where we go to Kular, where the Autobots are simply waiting, all in their positions. And this is where Lockdown's ship finally arrives, with an army of mercenaries ready to go, ready to collect their bounty. And this is also where, I would definitely give Lockdown the same army he had in, what's it called, Transformers Rise of the Darkspark. Yeah, we're going to give Lockdown everything at his disposal. Bro is going to be packed when it comes to an army. And why wouldn't he? This is a bounty hunter who literally employs other servants or other hunters to do his bidding. He should have an army, in all honesty. But with that being said, this is where, Lockdown does make his way and tries to storm Kular, not really thinking about why the Autobots are here or will there be any repercussions of it. No. He wants Optimus, and he wants him now. That's his bounty, his paycheck, his money. All right, all right there, and it's trying to get away from him. So he says, spare no one, meaning that, well, Lockdown's army is coming to kill. And this is where Evac and Lifeline, both in their position, begin to snipe the army. However, this is where Optimus says, now, and Prowl pulls a lever, opening the doors to the prison. And this is where, at first, everyone's confused, not knowing how to really tackle this situation. And this is where they're looking like, sir, do we go in? To which Lockdown, not even caring if this is an ambush or not, literally tells them, go and bring him Optimus now. So, not wanted to upset their leader and everything. They pretty much just rush up in there. They go in there, and obviously they get picked off in the most gruesome ways possible. Because again, these Autobots are vastly different. They're not here to play, and they're here to kind of just make sure they're fighting for survival, is what I'm trying to say. Meaning that the Autobots they get are not the Autobots that they thought they would have fought before. And so, with every moment, every soldier is either torn apart by the first wave, which is the Dinobots, mind you, or they are simply picked off by the rest of the Autobots. And this leaves Lockdown by himself, and he doesn't care. He charges in, hook and everything, and tells Optimus to come out and face him. But this is where Optimus does walk out, sword of judgment in hand and shield of justice in the other. And this is where he tells him, is that what you said to Ratchet? And Lockdown freezes. He knows the kind of mentality Optimus is in. And while he really wouldn't care, it's the way Optimus is. The demeanor shift, almost poised, almost infectious, if you will. And then he asks him again, did you ask Highwire? Did you ask Sideswipe? Did you ask Mirage if if they could fight one-on-one with you? And this is where Lockdown makes sure that his battle mask is ready. However, unlike the fight on Earth, this is different. Optimus is bloodlusted. He's willing to kill, or, going for the kill from start to finish. And he tears through Lockdown. And when I mean tear through him, he tears him apart. And he just mutilates him. And while some of the Autobots are pretty shocked about this, at least at first, this is where they simply note that, he had this coming. There's no way Lockdown was really going to get out of this without, any form of repercussions whatsoever. So unfortunately, fortunately enough, Lockdown is torn apart, limb from limb, and it's just it's gruesome and brutal. However, Lockdown doesn't die by Optimus. No. He says, "Now you may have your fun." And he steps aside, and this is where the Dinobots approach Lockdown. And well, if Jurassic Park has taught us nothing, it's that if a dinosaur is approaching you for vengeance, it's lights out. It's over. So, while Lockdown was brutally beaten, his death does not come at the hands of Optimus. No. While he did mutilate him, he did promise that the Dinobots would get their justice. And so, this is where Grimlock, Scorn, Slug, and Strafe all descend upon Lockdown and ripping the rest of him, just ripping the rest of him apart, and even eating some of the remains that are left. And that's where we're going to leave it off here. What's going to happen now that Optimus has left Earth and Earth is just, no longer there? What is going to happen to the universe with Quintessa and Megatron now by each other's side? And unfortunately, and both fortunately for Lockdown, that was his end, unfortunately. Or was it? But hey, that's going to be all for today, you guys. Please comment down below, like, and subscribe, and share with your friends. This is Legendary Grimlock, and I hope you guys have a blessed day. Peace.